Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I look crazy right now and the lighting is not the best, but I wanted to get this intro out because I didn't film it while I was editing this video because I was really sick. You can probably still hear it in my voice for about a week. I thought I had the Rona, but I just had the flu, which is really not any better. But I'm really excited for this video because at the end of the video, I'm going to be talking about bulking and cutting, answering a bunch of questions that you guys asked me in an Instagram Q&A. So if you ever want to participate in another Q&A, be sure to follow me on Instagram. It'll be linked in the description box down below. And then before that, I'm just going to show you guys a few clips of a quad and glute workout that I did. I think the same day. I think I filmed those two things on the same day. The full details of that workout will be also on Instagram, so you can go, just follow me on Instagram, basically is what I'm trying to say, because that's where I am the most active. But yeah, I'm really excited for this video. I think it'll be really helpful for a lot of you guys, and I'm excited to get your feedback. So if you have any other questions about bulking, cutting, or just anything in general, you can always ask me in my comment section. And yeah, let's get into this video. So we've made it to the point in the video that you guys are probably here for in the first place. We're going to be talking all about bulking and cutting. Now, I always get messages about weight gain because that is really what my transformation kind of stemmed from, was weight gain. And I recently had a reel go, not viral, but it gained some traction. And I got a lot of questions about gaining weight and bulking, and then I also got a lot of mean comments, but we won't talk about those people. So I figured, why don't I do a video dedicated to it? And I asked you guys again on Instagram to ask me questions in regards to this topic. If you want to take part in any Q&A in the future, just be sure to follow me down there. I'm pretty active on there, so I'm going to answer all those questions. But before we get to the rest of this segment, I just want to go over very simply what bulking and cutting is, and just a very brief summary and explanation of the terms. This is also a pillow of my dog. He does not live with me, he lives with my parents. So they got me this little pillow of him so I could always have him with me. So I'm gonna start with the definition of bulking. And all it means, very simply, is eating in a caloric surplus. So eating above your maintenance calories, which are the amount of calories that you would need to maintain exactly where you are at this current point in time. So when I'm eating in a caloric surplus, my body is going to take those extra calories, take that extra energy, and either A, store it as fat, or the best part is it's going to use it to build upon muscle. Now there's so many different degrees as to how you can bulk, how long you can bulk, but it's basically an increase in calories over an extended period of time. The way in which you approach and execute the bulk is going to determine the results that you have. And what I mean by that is, inevitably you're going to gain fat regardless. You're eating in an excess of calories, your body is going to store some of those calories as fat. Now the degree at which you gain that fat, again, is going to depend on the way that you approach the bulk. So if I am eating in a slight surplus and I'm slowly increasing my calories over time whilst implementing progressive overload, which is really great to do during a bulk because you have a lot more extra energy to use for your big lifts, and you have more power and more energy and strength and things like that. I'm going to be able to convert a lot of those calories into muscle and use that to build muscle, as opposed to having an influx of fat if I wasn't really working out at an intense pace and increasing my calories kind of all over the place and too much at once, if that makes sense. There are also different foods that you can eat that have a different nutrient value. So what I mean is, an excess of calories is an excess of calories, regardless of how you get those calories. However, again, 500 calories of a dinner that has a high amount of protein, a high amount of nice carbs and nice fats like an avocado or olive oil, chicken, whole grain pasta, rice, things like that is going to be a lot more useful to your body than 500 calories of cupcakes. Both are great, both can be involved in your routine. However, the nutrient value and the nutrient density of each of those foods is different, despite the fact that they're both the same amount of calories, if that makes sense. Now, on the contrary, a cut very simply is the opposite. It's just eating in a caloric deficit. Again, there are varying degrees as to how you can approach a cut. I find that this one tends to be a lot more, not dangerous, but there's a lot more room for error and a lot more room for there to be adverse effects if not approached in a safe manner. Because what happens when you're cutting is because you're eating in a decreased amount of calorie or less calories than your maintenance, your body is going to eventually break down the extra fat that you have to utilize it as energy, but it's also going to break down your muscle. Now, the way that we can avoid eating away as much muscle as possible is a slow and slight deficit combined with resistance training. Weight training and resistance training should be involved at all points, but especially when you're cutting, in order to maintain that muscle mass that you have and in order to keep as much as you possibly can. Inevitably, if you're eating in a deficit, you're really not going to be able to gain muscle and you're going to lose a little bit of volume, but to preserve as much as we can, we want to be eating in a slight deficit and staying with a weight training routine. And then of course your maintenance, like I said, is just the amount of calories that you need to maintain exactly where you are at this point. There is something else called body recomposition, which is basically like losing fat and gaining muscle or preserving muscle at the same time. It's more so if I'm eating at my maintenance, it's kind of like I'm switching the ratio, right? So I'm trying to decrease the amount of fat and increase the amount of muscle relative to each other. So that is what body recomposition is. Those are the definitions of cutting, bulking, body recomp, and maintenance calories. So now I'm gonna get into the questions that you guys asked. I'm reading your guys' questions. You guys submitted a lot of questions, and one that kept repeating was, how do I know which to do? Now, this is completely up to you. However, I will give you some information. That way you can make an educated decision. If I'm going to approach a situation in which I'm answering whether someone should cut or bulk, I think the first thing I would ask is your experience level in terms of fitness. So where are you in your fitness journey? And the reason that I ask this is when you're a beginner, this can honestly be one of the best times of your fitness journey, and also it could be a little bit more challenging. The reason it's one of the best times to be a newbie, even though I hate that term, but someone new in the gym, is your rate of muscle growth is so much faster because you're brand new to resistance training. Your muscles have never been put under this type of stress before, so you're gonna see a lot of progress within the first 3 to 6 months of weight training, resistance training, or fitness journey. However, it's quite difficult for someone who's a beginner to go straight into a bulk because you don't have that experience training at a level of intensity that would adequately allow you to utilize those extra calories in the best way possible. Unless you're someone who's a little bit more intermediate, advanced, do whatever you want, but a little bit more intermediate, you kind of know what you're doing, you know the training intensity, you know how to push yourself. A bulk maybe is not something you want to start right away. I'd say maybe stay more at your maintenance calories. Again, try to utilize body recomposition, especially like I said, as a beginner, you're at a perfect position to be gaining a lot of muscle within the first 3 to 6 months of your fitness journey before things start to taper off a little bit. And then the other thing is, if you're simply trying to lose weight, lose fat, you're probably going to want to go on some sort of a caloric deficit, but of course you want to do it in a way that is smart and sustainable for you. So working with someone to kind of figure out what would work best for you would probably be in your best interest. So a lot of the other question I got, how long until I see progress? How long should you bulk or cut? Again, this completely depends on you and your goal. If I am bulking, if I'm trying to bulk like we talked about when we were defining it, I want to do it in a longer, slower, steady increase. That way I can utilize those calories to build as much muscle as possible without an influx of excess fat. So that could be anywhere from 3 to 6 months. It could be a little bit longer than that. It could be a little bit less than that. If I'm trying to gain weight quick, fast, you're gonna be looking at a higher onset of calories, I guess is the best way I could say, in a shorter amount of time, but with that will come excess fat. So it really depends on you. When it comes to a cut, that also really depends. If I'm assuming nobody here is prepping for a competition or anything like that. I've never done that. I will never do that, but it's going to be a pretty intense cut for an extended period of time to lean out as much as possible. But a mini cut could be anywhere from, like 6 to 8 weeks. It could go on for a couple months. Again, it just depends on what your goals are and your timeline is basically. But one thing I will never say is you never again want to double your calories or slash your calories in half and try to go for that for like 2 weeks, because it just will not turn out well for you. This was a good question. Protein intake differences. So my train of thought is whether you're in maintenance, cutting, or bulking, your protein intake needs to be high, especially though if you are cutting. The reason being, protein is the building block of muscle. We need it to function. We need it for essential amino acids. We need protein. But especially if you're in a position where you're already eating in a deficit, you're gonna need as much protein as you can, like we said, to preserve as much muscle as we possibly can and fuel the work that you're going to be doing in the gym. So your protein intake should always be high, but again, especially if you're bulking, because you're gonna be able to train at a higher intensity, lift more weight, and again, you're trying to build as much muscle as possible within that time frame. Trying to lose weight but gain muscle at the same time. How do you lose your stomach fat without losing your glutes? Like we said before, the only really true way to build muscle is to be in a caloric surplus, is to feed that muscle and to build upon the muscle that you already have. However, like we also talked about, being a beginner in your fitness journey is great because you're at a perfect starting point. Stress your muscles and they're going to respond really well to the stimulus. So if you're looking to lose a certain amount of body fat, going into a slight caloric deficit is going to be great, or a caloric deficit in general, because you're going to lean out while starting to implement weight training into your daily life. And once you get to a certain point where your body fat is, you feel comfortable and you're able to see the definition and see the muscle mass, then you can slowly start to increase your calories again as you get more advanced in the gym. And like we talked about, you're going to be able to slow the amount or reduce the amount of fat that you're going to gain while being able to build muscle, because now you have a great foundation to start increasing your workout intensity and increasing the amount you can push yourself, which is going to stimulate more muscle growth, if that makes sense. You're not going to be able to lose a lot of fat and keep your glutes at the same time unless you have some sort of amazing genetic makeup. It's just not possible. You kind of have to go through different phases in order to create your perfect program and what works best for you. Things to eat, to do that help for bulking when gaining weight is really difficult. So like I said, a calorie is a calorie regardless of where it comes from, but we want to focus on eating things that are as nutritionally dense as possible. That way our body can utilize them in the best way possible. So when for instance, like right now, I'm trying to increase my calories. So I'm eating a lot of nut butters. I'm not shying away from oils like olive oil. I eat my carbs. Carbs are your best friend. Do not shy away from carbs. I eat rice, white and brown. I eat lentils, bread, sourdough is my favorite. It's also perfect because it's fermented, so it's really good for gut bacteria. Sometimes I have full fat yogurt. Actually, most of the time, I only really have full fat yogurt because I don't like skim. Finding foods that are really high in protein. So I find that when I'm bulking, yes, I'm tracking my calories, but not really, because what I'm focused on is my macros, right? So higher carb, higher fat, higher protein. So I'm looking for things that are high in protein, moderately to high in carbs, and a really good source of fats. Certain protein drinks, not really my favorite, but a protein drink is really helpful here and there. Oils like olive oil, avocado oil, nuts, seeds. I really don't shy away from a lot of foods, but I try to make sure that my foods are as nutrient dense as possible. And in order to help you reach your macros, hit those calories, planning. I mean, there's really no other way around it. You just have to plan to have food on hand. You have to plan out your meals, not in where it's like a super restricted sense, but I mean like, make sure that you have something on hand. If you know you're gonna get hungry, if you're working in an office, something to keep your blood sugar up, something to keep you going. go out to dinners, hang out with friends. You can do all those things, but just make sure that you're kind of keeping up with your protein and your food intake, because one of the hardest things about bulking is you can't just eat a bunch of calories one day and then eat a little bit lower in the next day and then a bunch and then lower. You can't do that up and down. You want to stay consistent because that's what's going to give you the best effect. So just planning, picking foods that are higher in calories, but also nutrient dense and macro friendly for you. That way you can get the best out of what you're eating when you do have time to sit and eat. So the last question I'm going to answer is one that kept repeating, but this person worded it perfectly. What is the final calorie increase point? Again, this depends on the individual. I can't give you a set amount of calories that's like your cap. It also depends on your goal, right? So it's going to be based on how you feel, how you look. What is your goal in terms of strength? What is your goal in terms of performance in the gym? That is all going to factor into that. So I can't give an exact number. I would say the final point is whenever you feel you've reached what you were after in the first place. So it really depends on the individual, but all of this depends on the individual, right? Like there's no cookie cutter way to do it. It's all person to person, individual by individual. So I hope I answered all your questions. If you have more questions, feel free to reach out to me. But that was the end of this video today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Like I said, if you have any other questions, you can contact me via email, social media, my TikTok, everything, Instagram will be down below if you want to go check that out, as well as my link to online personal training services that I offer. But yeah, I hope you guys have an awesome day and enjoy this video. My camera's about to die, so I'm gonna hop off here and edit this video for you guys. Thank you to everyone who's been subscribing and supporting. I really appreciate it, and I will see you guys in the next videos. So bye guys.